So excited to be having this live stream with Doug McMaster, our collaborator at the original Zero Waste Cafe, Silo, back with Matt and so many others, of course. But, mate, you haven't changed one bit. You still look exactly the same.
I'd say better looking even.
I've ripened well like a fine wine. I would disagree. I've posted a little memory lane on our Instagram, and everybody was just like, "That's not you. That's like, yeah, that's a different human being." So I would beg to differ, but thank you anyway. Yost, I think more so you two. I think you two look exactly like you did 10 years ago, 9 years ago.
Definitely don't feel it.
I don't feel it, no, either. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Yeah,
hey, so
yeah,
for people that don't know, we'll just explain how we met. So 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, so Sydney Greenhouse, and you stumbled through the doors. You were working next door at a little cafe called, what was it called?
No, I was working at a world class restaurant in Sydney, and the Rocks, and I was having a pretty tough time, feeling very disillusioned by the hospitality industry, and then stumbled upon the greenhouse.
And I still remember it so well, you know. Yeah, I think you actually joined us for after service drinks at one night, and then you actually came to our end of greenhouse party on the boat, and that was an epic night.
Absolutely. I remember having a particularly rough day, and I was on a break. I rarely had breaks from this place, but had a break this one afternoon, and it was this sort of tropical rainfall, and I was on the Rocks, and you had Sydney Harbour and the Opera House. It was quite the vista, and had this thumping kind of rock and roll music in the sort of distance, and it was raining, but it was really hot and steamy, and then just sort of gravitated towards this this building, this structure, and I had this strange feeling. I can't remember exactly, what the things were said or done, but I remember how I felt. I remember feeling like just in awe of this structure, and as I got closer, it obviously became what was the greenhouse in 2011, I think. And that was the beginning of the rest of my life, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, we definitely bonded, and a year later we were working. You came and helped us with the last greenhouse, which was for the Food and Wine Festival in Melbourne, and Joe was working there too. So we were all, together. And then, opened Silo, and I still remember you calling me and saying, "Look, there's this particular product. I can't remember exactly what it was." And you said, "Oh, look, it's got it comes with a little bit of packaging, but." I can't remember. Yeah, and I just said, well, then we don't have raspberries, or we don't have whatever it was. Like, just find something else. And it was like, for you, it was like this moment where you just went, okay, this is actually real. I said, well, we don't have a bin, so if we don't have a bin, we can't accept anything. We're not going to run down the road and put rubbish in somebody else's bin. It's like we just got to stick to that philosophy. But you would agree that the most my favorite thing about that project was how eager suppliers were to actually work with us to achieve that zero waste concept. People were coming from everywhere going, I grow this, I grow that, and it just made me realize that collaboration is the only way to achieve this. And it just made so much sense to people, and so people came on board and wanted to help realize his vision.
Yeah, that was quite a special time. It was very creative, and for me, I'll remember it for the rest of my life. And there was this the whole idea of, because that's what you said, is could you not have a bin? And you were saying this to Matt previously, and you said to me, could you not have a bin? And it was, you're a artist, and that is such a profound thing to say. And from that grew everything, every single thing, everything that I personally dedicate my life to. And this whole project too was born in that moment. Could you not have a bin? Such an abstract idea, proposition, and from that has, you know, grown so much creativity and so many legitimately valuable ideas. And yeah, it's certainly, you know, at that time I didn't have a great deal of, I was feeling a little bit lost in the world, and that gave me this sort of fulfillment and this path, and I'll yeah, forever be grateful for that.
It's amazing what limitation does, isn't it?
Breeds a lot of creativity.
Yeah, it's like this, one of Melbourne's best architects, Nonda Katsoulides, once said to me, you know, there were 2 rooms and we were on the 87th floor of a tower, and one was all glass and the other one had one tiny window, and he said, out of which view do you see the most? And it made me realize that you actually see a lot more through that tiny little window because you're focused on what it is that you see. And that's kind of, you need that approach, you know, because if you can just get caught up in all the bullshit, and it's like, it's limitation breeds creativity, and you come out with all these, you end up with a whole bunch, and that's what this house has really done. You know, it's, you end up with a whole bunch of stuff that you otherwise wouldn't have expected.
So Joost, on that, I would love to have a tour. I can't be there in person, which breaks my heart, but I would love to have a tour. Well,
best place to start is at what I call the heart of the building. Or the stomach, or it's kind of like, we've got some people from Tasmania and some people from Sydney in at the moment, but LA, they're just hanging out at the front door. This is the mushroom. Oh, this is kind of the entrance, really, which is like kind of like the garage. It's got everything. It's where the energy is made. It's where the energy is stored. It's where the inverters are. It's where there's a battery storage. And so we're collecting solar power during the day and then using it at night. And yeah, it's, you know, I love straw. So the whole house is made from compressed straw, and that's, the mushroom actually harvests steam from the shower and condensate from the hot water service. And the volume of the space is actually designed so that every single element is designed. Well, there you go. Like Joe's just there's Joe there, taken a king oyster. It's actually gone a bit out of control there. You can see the pink oysters, and we've got about 20 different types of mushrooms that we've been experimenting with. And what I love about this concept that you're looking at right here is that every single household in Australia produces enough waste to fill this wall. So every single hot water service produces a condensate, and every single shower produces steam. So we're harvesting those elements to create the perfect environment. And then what's inside the buckets is actually, that's the hot water unit that produces the steam, the condensate. And then every single bucket is filled with things like fibrous cellulose waste, so coffee grounds, corn stalks, cardboard, newspaper. And so that volume, that size is actually quite significant, because I've designed it so that it can actually utilize the waste that every household already generates. And then if you look to the left, I mean, this is obviously proved quite, you know, people just love it. It's like you're walking into a jungle. There's actually barramundi, so there's an aquaponics systems there. We're using the water from the aquaponics systems to feed the vertical gardens. The barramundi here are an Australian native fish, and one of the breeds in there is actually golden barramundi, which is super rare, and they've got a really white flesh. Barramundi are the world's fastest aquaponics species. So in America especially, they're obsessed with this fish. It's a white flesh fish, converts really well, but it's also brilliant in an urban situation. So it loves, converts well, and just like the ultimate species for microsystems. So we believe that where we generate food waste is where we should be producing fish, because that food waste can be turned into fish food. And then that fish food becomes, of course, nutrients for all the plants that we've got. So we've got bananas and different other things, strawberries and that sort of thing growing up there.
Yes. How do you convert the food waste into fish food?
We use the, what's it called? KitchenAid.
The tea mix. Thermomix.
Thermomix.
What, you just blend food waste? Is there anything you
Yeah,
can't give the fish?
you just dial it into futurefoodsystem food waste. It's on the dial, and it's got the setting for it.
But it's mixed with some freshly foraged seaweeds as well, and basically freeze it. So just mix the fish waste, add a heap of seaweed or kelp or whatever we forage for, and then freeze it and grate it on a box grater.
Yeah, or what we also do is we always add an egg. And
that helps to bind it, obviously.
Yeah, and also from a nutrient point of view, we do lots of greens, so like offcuts of chard and...
Chard stalks, kale
yeah,
stalks.
we throw some crickets in because we've got crickets. We're growing crickets here as well. So we're kind of experimenting at the moment with all different kinds of recipes. But yeah, obviously there's huge different many different ways you can do it. It's hard to see here behind...
Sorry, the barramundi are mimicking your diet, essentially.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, we produce, more than enough. It's actually insane at the moment. So almost, I think we're nudging 40% of the world's fish that are caught in the oceans are actually used to feed fish. And at the moment, it takes 4 kilos of wild fish to produce 1 kilo of farm fish. So it's this insanity, that we're destroying the ocean to try and create what people perceive to be a sustainable.
And it's because it's predominantly bycatch and less desirable fish that people don't put a high value on, that get caught up, and then the only way to find value for these people that sell them in the broken system is to sell them to fish farms.
Yeah, so they get pelletized, dehydrated, pelletized, and it's insane, really. So yeah, we've been experimenting with different ways of doing that. And as you know, 1/3 of the world's food is not even eaten; it's food waste. So we've got, and as you know, I'm passionate about decentralized microsystems that actually utilize what we have where we generate it. And that's another thing that you can't see here. Behind the plants is a big biodigester. And what it does is every single person on earth produces a kilo of organic waste. So this is not restaurants, this is at home, right? And each kilo converts to an hour of methane. So what that biodigester does, it uses the microflora of the cow's stomach. You actually inoculate it with cow manure. And what you do is it produces gas, so methane, which can be used for cooking, hot water boosting, or whatever. So at the moment, we're wasting between 7 and 8 billion hours of potential energy every single day. And what it does, though, for me, more importantly, like the methane is great and it's a huge source of energy. And if you put it into a composter or if you deal with it in other ways, it of course generates methane. With this system, we're capturing it. And but what it does, it converts organic waste through. We put it through an incinerator and it macerates the material, which makes it easier for the stomach to digest. And it turns it into really rich fertilizer, which then goes onto a worm farm. So it's like a big tank filled with worms. And we're pretty much mimicking what happens in a paddock. So when you pick up a cow patty in a field, it's almost always filled with worms because the worms come out of the ground, especially at night. They come out of the ground, they take all the nutrients out of the manure and bring it back down into soil. So we're copying that, and actually we've got a Wormworks. It's called Wormworks system, which is like a septic system made with worms, and then that turns it back into fertilizer. It's quite dark here.
Just to understand, so in that big black, what looks like a sack is cow manure. And then underneath there are worms that come up and take the nutrients from the manure.
Now they're two separate systems. So you don't need the worms. You don't need the worms. The worms is well, you know how obsessed I am with worms, right? So I've added that system because I believe that, the cow manure, so-called, the man-made cow manure is already inoculated and fermented and filled with lots of microflora. But worms make it even like a steroid, next level. Like plants go fucking crazy for it. So it's all about adding more biology and more microflora, and the worms break it down even more and make it even more available for plants. And then it goes back onto all the plants. So it's like a closed system. And just to give you an idea, 45% of what Australia puts in landfill can go into that stomach. So we've got the potential of taking tens of thousands of garbage trucks off the road. Plus, you know, the stuff that smells is what should be in that biodigester. My dad used to say, the more it smells, the more nutrients it has, the more it should be back in our soil.
Yeah, yeah. And are these systems commercially available?
Yes.
Wow.
I think I just saw a barramundi jump out. Yeah, they are. And so this particular system that I've used is it's called a biodigester from Home Biogas from Israel.
Yeah.
But there's hundreds of startups around the world working on this. I promise you that by 2030, every home in the world will have one of these.
Cool.
2030, that's optimistic. Wow.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, we haven't even gone upstairs. So look at the floor. If you look at the floor, it's really cool. It's made from recycled glass and recycled concrete. So a local company's worked out how to eliminate sand out of making tiles and replace it with wine bottles. And then the concrete is 100%, and the cement is 100% extracted from recycled cement. And the reason why this is really important is that that floor is an earthing floor. So the only form of heating and cooling is through the floor using solar-powered hydronic heating through a heat pump. And we've actually laid copper wire in where the grout is. And we've connected that to the Earth's magnetic field. So when you walk on this floor, you're connected to the Earth's magnetic field. So you can discharge, because we are sponges for electrical energy. And about 50 years ago, we transitioned to rubber-soled shoes, which meant that we're disconnected from the Earth's magnetic field, which means that we are becoming, we store electrical energy because we are sponges for electrical energy. That's all around us.
And what does that electrical energy do to us?
It causes inflammation.
There's a lot of that.
There is a lot of that. And so one of the reasons why you feel so good walking on the beach barefoot is because sand is a great conductor. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to release all of the electrical energy that's stored in your body. So going for a beach walk, you know how good you feel after going for a walk, you know, on the beach barefoot. It's because you're completely discharged of electrical energy.
Wow.
But we should
never would have thought of that. That is actually brilliant.
Yeah, so we should, my opinion is we should always be connected to the Earth's magnetic field. So I wanted to design a house where no matter where you walked, you know, from the minute you get up, even the bed is connected to the Earth's magnetic field.
Wow. Incredible.
So we'll just go to the bedroom quickly, because I'm sure you would love this bed. I'll take you to the bedroom, Doug. Here's Joe's bedroom. So you can see this bed is actually, I designed this bed after meeting Zach Bush, you know, the brilliant American doctor.
MD, yeah.
Yeah, so Zach recommended for a friend of ours who was suffering stage 4 cancer. He said, look, spend as much time in and around ferns and it has a really beneficial effect on your microbiome, because the air, the microbiome that exists in the air around ferns is quite unique and has lots of ancient microflora. So I designed a bed that was filled with ferns so that when you sleep, you're breathing in that microbiome.
Wow.
And so
the two little ferns on the tip of the bed, or is it inside as well? What?
No, just on the tip. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm really obsessed with this house could be certified organic. So we've only used organic materials, organic mattresses, like the curtains are made from felt, wool. There's no synthetic anything in this house.
Yeah.
And Joe's just making sure that she's got a bit of privacy. So now we'll make our way upstairs. Oh, actually, you can see the straw. So this is epic, right? So Aiden's about to show you the straw. So see that? All the walls are made from compressed straw. So the floor, walls, and ceiling are made from a double skin of compressed straw. So straw is the most wasted material on Earth. There's 400 million farmers producing straw, and some of them produce it 2 times a year. And this company here in Australia have been making panels for houses for over 70 years from all of the straw that the farmers normally burn. And you can see here, we've actually ripped a corner off so people can see it. And Yeah, it's just, there's nothing other than straw. And what happens is they use 60 tons of pressure and a little bit of heat, and it makes the straw steam up, and the steam bonds the panel together. So it's, no glues, no resins, no fire retardants, no nothing. Here's the shower with the same tiles. And it's really cool. All the taps and the shower head and everything has been made in Melbourne from 100% recycled brass.
Wow. Amazing.
And yeah, you can see the wall and floor tiles are the same material. All we cut, there's no FSC timber in the whole building. So Forest Stewardship Council was started in 1992, and it was started for good reason, to give us confidence that when we buy a book, you can see all the timber here, Doug, the stairs and all. So it's all come off farms.
Really?
And so,
oh, wow.
I was determined to build a building without any FSC timber because I can't stand monoculture forestry. And that's where most FSC timber comes from. But also, if anyone's interested in seeing what a debacle and how fucked up the whole forestry business is, follow FSC Watch. It's some of the people that used to work at FSC that have started an organization highlighting how damaging our current wood system is. There's 99% of timber comes from monoculture species. So you've got, imagine one tree, one species, all exactly the same age, planted exactly the same distance apart by the million. That's what most monoculture forests look like. There's no birds, there's no wildlife, there's no habitat, there's nothing. And so I was really determined to support agroforestry where the trees have come off farms. And so farmers are getting back, here's the camera up on our floor. So yeah, he can see here the kitchen. All the kitchen's been made from a tree that we harvested on the 25th of July. It's called a cypress. It was used for windbreaks and crop protection and shelter belts. And so we're really keen to support agroforestry as an alternative and believe that, in the future, our farmers could be our suppliers of trees, not monoculture forests.
Absolutely. This is that natural integration.
Exactly. So we worked with a guy called Rowan Reed, Professor Rowan Reed, who's taught agroforestry at Melbourne University for 20 plus years, and a Yan Yan Gert farm who have planted over 250 species of trees, 40,000 trees on their farm, and they're cutting now over the last 28 years, and now they're cutting really high quality timber that can be used for the chairs that you see, the carcass of the kitchen. So there's no engineered timber in this building at all. And then you can see the background is actually the splashback is made from broken skateboards.
That's a wonderful touch to Mr. Matt Stone. I think when I first met Matt, he was on a skateboard.
Not so much anymore. You don't bounce back as much as you used to when you're young, that's for sure.
Yeah, but it's a nice touch. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, it's beautiful. At first, when I saw it, I thought, wow, it's pretty rude. But then we put it in the space and it really breaks it, and it's really cool. It just looks awesome.
This is kind of like we've got lots of favorites in the house. Obviously the mushroom wall, the aquaponics systems. This is crickets. So again, I'm hoping that by 2030, every single house has a cricket farm. We call this the MCG, the Melbourne Cricket Ground. And basically, what we've fed them today is just there's some pumpkins like baby squash and that sort of thing. And also we're starting to harvest Jerusalem artichokes, the peasant potato. And there's a big rhubarb leaf that actually broke off. And we only put this in 2 hours ago. Look how the crickets are absolutely devouring this. And
wow,
they're so good. They're the perfect pet. Not only that, they eat all the food that we don't want, And
so how many crickets are in there?
There'd be thousands in there. And then we've
thousands
got
crickets in one barrel. And
can you see that it's got some black soil in there?
Yeah, I can just about see it.
Yeah, so what they do is they lay their eggs in the black soil. And as long as that soil stays moist, they'll lay eggs in there and they'll reproduce. And then all you've got to make sure that you do is that every fortnight you change. I mean, you could do it weekly as well. You take that egg carton out, you put it in an incubator, because the crickets will actually eat themselves. So you've just got to make sure you.
Yes, how does the population of crickets kind of stay in like an equilibrium? How do they not overpopulate?
Because you keep eating them.
Yeah, we just harvest.
Nice. There we go. That's brilliant.
And so,
what's Matt cooking? Matt and Joe.
So we've made a garum, a cricket garum, seasoning things. So 50% koji, 50% cricket, and about 12% salt, fermented for about 8 weeks. And then we do a cricket ball, which is basically a falafel made with sprouted grains from the roof, mixed with about 10% cricket to chickpea, and then whatever herb and veggie trimmings we have. We've also Joey did a tostada last week with a sorghum crisp that was nixtamalized, and did a salsa of barbecue peppers and crickets.
They look like little Mexican crickets that day.
And then on Saturday night, Joe harvested the crickets at 5 p.m. and we had guests at 7 p.m. And the difference, like they were so fresh, and they were just, people were just going, oh my God, these are amazing.
Yeah, they really changed in flavour.
I think that's quite a kind of powerful message for the whole food industry. It's like not cook what we design in our heads, but to cook what we it's like cook our environment, cook the system. We are a product of our environment, and we should integrate with it and cook what it wants to create for us rather than what we want to cook. It's like reverse engineering. I think that's absolutely genius.
Plus,
show you the mealworms.
Plus also the the nutrients that those crickets provide are so low in our current diet. So vitamin K2 is so low. So all the things that everyone's popping pills for can be provided by those crickets, and those crickets can be fed with the waste that we're putting in our bin.
But look, and the footprint of it is so tiny compared to how much room you need for livestock and the things that we look for these nutrients from that have massive emissions. And look, I'm not saying we eliminate all of them. It's more about how much of them we consume. It should be much less and much higher quality. But something like the crickets, it's a perfect no waste system ingredient because it eats waste. It takes up very little space. It requires no more energy than running the light that goes on it. And
the funny thing is as well, is the louder we put the music, the louder the crickets go.
They usually get louder, so they can hear themselves.
And it's
lousy crickets.
You know what we like with music, Douglas? We don't play it quietly.
No, I remember.
Hey, so look at this, right? So this is called a plastivore. It's basically a plastic stomach, and it's filled with styrofoam. All the styrofoam that came with the ovens, and you know how much shit you get when you
can't buy a fridge or an oven or a dishwasher without polystyrene. We've copped heaps of flack about this. People saying you shouldn't accept it, but at the end of the day, we in a modern society, you need a refrigerator, you need a washing machine, you need these things, and you can't transport a product from Germany to Australia because unfortunately they're not. Stuff like this isn't really commonly made here. You can't do it without this stuff. So we look at finding a solution for a problem that we can't eliminate yet. But maybe one day we can, but currently no.
So this stomach was completely full. And there's a mealworm that's native to Queensland that has absolutely demolished it.
See the little holes through it? That's where a mealworm's eating its way through.
So mealworms are eating the polystyrene?
Yeah, and they're turning the polystyrene into fertilizer. And there's actually they've actually now formed into beetles and are now breeding again. So the cycle is starting again. And
what conditions do you have to create for the mealworms? Is there any kind of heat or any light?
Well, they prefer it warmer. So I actually need to put a heat lamp in there because it's getting colder now. We're going into winter. Yeah. But the funny thing is you break a section open and they're inside the styrofoam because they're, now you can see the bottom of the aquaponics system.
This is the second aquaponics system.
So we've got two systems. We've got one on the ground floor and one on the top floor. This has got crustaceans, shellfish, mussels,
so we've
yabbies.
Got a yabby, which is a native freshwater crayfish, basically. Similar to a marron, but a little bit smaller.
So this is our favorite part of the house. So we dream that every house in the world should have one of these because you would never, ever need to go and buy herbs or lettuce or greens. Plus, the greens are so much more loaded with nutrients and tastier because the fish are providing the nutrients.
And the trout have grown from, you know, the size of your thumb to about 15 centimeters in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, it's so they grow so quick. And yeah, so the trout do you want to hear a funny story?
Yeah, what is the tank? Sorry, I can't quite see what it is.
IBCs. They're IBCs. They're used for transporting liquid all over the world. So if you go to you could buy them in London for nothing, you know.
They're about $100.
$100 here in Australia, but you've got to make sure you get food grade. So one that was used for olive oil or for importing sunflower oil.
A lot of imports from, say, Europe, they'll import 1,000 litres of olive oil in that and then bottle it here because obviously the transport's cheaper than that much equivalent of glass. So there's a huge abundance of these, you know, crushed tomatoes from Italy, vinegar from Europe. So they're quite common. And most local councils have a drum recycling system. So you can contact them and get them for next to nothing.
That's a freshwater mussel that Joe's holding?
A mussel that's native to Arnhem Land in northern Australia. And yeah, I didn't know these ever existed, but there's like 43 species of native freshwater mussels in Australia. And, you know, I've been cooking for 17 years, thinking I know every ingredient possible, but, you know, you're always finding these new things, which is pretty exciting. And they filter up to 200 litres of water a day. So we had them in the system before anything else, and some of them were dying. And we realised we hadn't created balance in the ecosystem yet because the water was too clean. There was nothing for them to eat. So they rely on the fish, they rely on the yabbies, and they rely on the plants.
Yeah, so the guy said, man, you haven't got enough fish. You need more fish, you need more yabbies, you need more plants. Like, so we just introduced more yabbies, we introduced more plants. And like this space is 3 square meters. And seriously, like this space, we met a woman in Northcote who produces 122 kilo trout a year from the same system. And more than enough cucumbers and tomatoes and greens than you could possibly eat, like in 3 square meters.
Matt, I was going to ask how many meals of the week are fish, or from the tank, should I say?
Well, we feed about 70 guests a week, so we definitely top up. I mean, this building was never designed to be a restaurant. It was always designed to be our home.
No, yeah,
and
sure.
After everything that happened last year, and we left our jobs, and we just wanted to put every effort into this. So to generate a small revenue stream, we decided to turn it into a restaurant. So we top up on ingredients, but only things that are growing on the building from people that we know how they farm. But through the meal, it's about a 10-course meal. There's one small yabby course generally, and then we do a barramundi course and a trout course, but they're not the main. The main is always vegetables or grains. And yeah, so we've been doing like kind of like a barra brondari sort of thing with some crisps with the skin and swim bladder because we're using everything. We make a lot of our seasoning in the form of garums from them. There he is. He's up on the roof. And then, so the trout we've done, you know, because we're cooking for 14 people, we have ability to do things that we've always dreamed of. So, you know, we can smoke a trout just before service and never refrigerate it so the fats and oils haven't congealed. And that's, you know, it's like as a chef, we eat it then because that's when it's best.
There's nothing better. You can't beat that.
Yeah, so it's, there it is.
So that's a yabby or a crayfish?
Yeah. Well, it's a freshwater crayfish, but it's the yabby, yeah. So they're native to Australia. You'll find them in, you know, dams and waterways all over the place.
They're a pest, aren't they?
In some areas, they're considered an invasive species because they breed really fast. Like we've already bred our first lot here, and they've grown, you know, to a decent size already. So, you know, they grow relatively quickly, and it's a perfect aquaponics product. They love the environment. It's very low maintenance. You don't have to do anything. Other than flick them a bit of food. They eat mostly carrots. We've figured out they love carrots. And they love meat. But we don't have meat here, so, you know, they're missing out on that. But I've heard stories and tales of being able to grow them to like nearly a kilo when you feed them meat.
Yeah. Matt, do you know the expression, if it grows together, it goes together?
I do. It's one of my favourite.
Is that the case for the aquaponics system?
Well, actually, funny you mentioned that. Without realizing, we have done that a lot. So we were doing like a salt cured trout for ages with a nice pilot mixed with a garum made from some of the fish, and then served it sort of a bit Sanchoy bar style. So with fresh leaves from the aquaponics, a mix of sour, bitter, fragrant, and sweet leaves. And so you can kind of pick your own adventure with how you eat it and eat it with your hands. So actually, yeah exactly.
There's some oats. So Joe's holding up some oats that have actually just grown by themselves, to be honest.
Mate, we've bloody rolled some oats for this guy in our time, haven't we?
Yeah. I was going to say, like, oats sounds like such a crop that you'd imagine growing in a huge field and loads of it. Like a bowl of porridge is a lot of oats. How can such a small... Do you just have to shift your approach to cooking an oats? You know, do you do it differently? Do you serve it younger, fresher? How does that change?
Well, we grew, one of the first crops we harvested was a couple of bins of oats. And it's actually, like if it were just Joe and I here, it still would have been enough, I feel, up until about now. And now that the second crop's almost ready to go. For a family, you could definitely produce enough. I truly believe and honestly say that.
And buckwheat, oh my God.
Buckwheat is ridiculous. We're on our fourth harvest of buckwheat, and it just self-seeds. It grows so fast.
Like in 6 weeks. I've never grown it before. I planted it and just went, what the hell? It just went crazy.
And it's funny because the birds quite like it. So when we're walking around Federation Square, a lot of the other garden beds have buckwheat sprouted because the birds have eaten it, processed it, going everywhere.
Wow. See chickpeas there? Can you see the chickpeas? It's like that feathery sort of, anyway, cabbages and
Matt, I was going to say that we make our koji from buckwheat. So we sprout the buckwheat and then grow Aspergillus oryzae on the sprouted buckwheat, and it is absolutely, it's my favorite koji.
Right, I'll try some tomorrow. We've done it with sorghum, but I can imagine the flavour from buckwheat would be amazing.
Yeah, it's so good.
Well, I was actually planning to put some on tomorrow. So you just soak and sprout the buckwheat first, and then do you dry it off at all, and then inoculate?
So we soak the buckwheat for 1 hour, and then just rinse it every 6 or 12 hours, and then that's it.
Yep.
Cool, man. So anyway, you're on the roof now in Fed Square, and it's like a 3-story building. It's not big. It's 87 square meters. It seems bigger than what it is, but what the goal was to create. Like, I'd love to, in 10 years' time, I want this building to be the most biodiverse ecosystem on Earth. My goal is to have over 1,000 different species of plants on this tiny building. But obviously, that's when it gets built permanently. But I think one thing that we has surprised me and has surprised Matt and Joe as well is how productive one tiny building can be.
Like we've picked, we should have been recording it, but we've been too busy. But we've picked, like hundreds of kilos of food, but food that I didn't think would possibly yield well. Like we've picked probably 7 or 8 kilos of chickpeas, which is a lot of chickpeas. We've picked easily probably close to 10 kilos of buckwheat. The amount of fresh vegetables that we've harvested, pumpkins, we would have nudged over 100 kilos. Zucchini's probably the same. We're still picking tomatoes and beans, which is really late. We're almost in winter.
Hey, so this poster here, McDonald's only uses 100% British beef. That my mate Sammy, do you remember Sammy? Sam the poster man, Doug?
No. I remember you talking about it. I don't know if I met him.
He's an idiot. Anyway, he stole that from McDonald's in 1992 in London when mad cow disease was probably before you were born.
I had a question, Joost.
Yep.
So obviously, especially in London, and I think a lot of the sort of modern cities of the world, like hydroponics, you see them in all of these kind of modern offices, and you just see hydroponics kind of everywhere. And so many people have this quite shallow understanding that they are this future of food, which obviously I know that we feel very differently, but like, not to deduce what you're doing and what that is doing to like purely yield, because obviously there's values way beyond how productive these food systems are. But but purely in a productivity sense, how much more productive is the future food system than, say, your average hydroponic system that you find growing these limp-looking lettuces in an office?
Look, I don't know, and I'm not really too interested, to be honest, because I don't think it's fair competition. It's like, you know, going for a run and someone's on steroids and the other one's not. You know, like it doesn't, like I wouldn't even eat food that's grown hydroponically. It just doesn't make sense to me. So, you know, like the aquaponic systems on the roof, you know, that's got worms, it's got biology. We've collected like stuff from local wild rivers, and so there's a lot of biology that coats those beds. So I am sure that if we did like a microbiome test, not only on our soil, but also on the aquaponic systems, I truly believe that our biology on our food, when we eat it raw, would be very similar to wild food in a ancient forest. Yeah.
That's another profound thing that it's going to take a while to digest.
Well, I mean, we know that when, you know, the Hudsa get tested, they've got a microbiome, the species that exist in their gut that are extinct in the West, you know. So we've got to try and get that population back, and the best way to do that is to grow. It's through biodiversity, right? The Hudsa eat 400-500 different foods. We're kind of, you know, mimicking. This is a really good angle. You can kind of see where we are. You know Melbourne well. So the river's behind us. There's the art centre. We're looking from Federation Square out onto the river. And, you know, I think this is a really special location because we know that Aboriginals have been here for at least 50 or 60,000 years.
Look, it was a meeting place for a bunch of different mobs. It was Birrong Ma. So it's where people would come to communicate and talk and share stories. So spiritually, it's a really special place, you know, historically here in Melbourne.
And we sense that. Like, I chose this location because I thought it was quieter for Matt and Joe to live here. Federation Square wanted us to be on Flinders Street, and it's like, fuck, that's crazy, man. You can't live there. It's so busy. But this is like, you know, the riverside, but we've just fallen in love with this location because it's so beautiful in the morning and you have this amazing light. And no matter how, you know, if we have a storm, or it's always beautiful here, you know, you've seen protected, and the food just grows like you wouldn't believe. There's something special. The energy about this place is really, it's epic.
Yeah.
Hey, so now I want to ask about you, because you've worked on the Zero Waste Cooking School. The whole COVID situation is, you know, silos being closed now, and you know, first of all, I want to know what's going on in London, but I know you're about to open, which is really amazing. But yeah, the Zero Waste Cooking School, we're absolutely loving.
So it was a lockdown baby. We had two lockdown babies, Silo and Crate Brewery. One of them was the White Building Market, which I'll show you now. So it's I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's kind of gallery of all the different products and producers, the different natural wines, obviously the books there, all the different companies that we work with at Silo is basically in the shop. And so that was one of the lockdown babies. And then the second was the Zero Waste Cooking School, which is a visualization of this ecosystem that we are part of. So the people, the producers, the suppliers, the products, the systems, all of the things that are of interest. It's just our way, just like this live stream, of kind of visualizing that system, just so people, something that I've always been conscious of is that a trendy East London restaurant isn't accessible to everyone in the world, you know, but these ideas should be accessible to everyone in the world. So how do we achieve that? How do we make it accessible to everyone? Can watch a YouTube video or an Instagram TV video anywhere in the world. It's, you know, it's free pretty much. So yeah, that's the purpose of the cooking school. We're just coming out of lockdown. Sorry, Matt?
Will the shop continue when the restaurant reopens?
Yeah, absolutely. We've just taken the shop online, which is really exciting. Again, so not only are we connecting the dots of all the suppliers and the makers and the artists in the shop physically? But now you can, well, in the UK at least, order all of those products from that network online. So, you know, we use, just like, you know, you guys are using the analogy of an ecosystem in a building. This is, again, this sort of ecosystem of people, places, things, products, and making it as accessible as possible. So yeah, that's sort of where we're at, and we're just coming out of lockdown now. So yeah, we're opening, but we're doing our first soft launch on Saturday, so in a few days. You can see the team here deep cleaning and getting ready for it.
And so will you run just the menu, or will it be a la carte? Or
so we have 14 dishes, 12, 13, 14, and we kind of divide that into, so if you're a diner or a table of two, you have the option to go all in. So all in means you have all the dishes between two people, or you can double up and go for 4. But it's kind of doubling up on a tasting menu. Instead of having a 6 or 7 course menu, you have 2 6 or 7 course menus between 2 or 4 or whatever. But then it's also quite casual. It's a la carte as well. So you can come in and have any of those dishes priced individually from the list. Again, always trying to be as accessible as possible. And yeah, so that's kicking off next week.
do you find most of your diners just go for the full menu?
Yeah, 98% go all in. That's good. Yeah. So I got a couple of products that I just in front of me that I wanted to sort of to show you. Something that isn't as relative to the future food system, because this is an external ingredient, an external source of food, but something that we talked a lot about in Australia was the invasive species. And this is Britain's most invasive plant. I'm not sure how familiar you are with it.
Japanese knotweed.
This is Japanese knotweed, exactly. So yeah, it's kind of, if asparagus and bamboo had a baby, it would be this, although it tastes like rhubarb. Super tender this time of year. I took a train to Brighton, which is where Silo kicked off in the UK. I went there last night to what was like a forest of this stuff, and yeah, harvested a bunch, which I'm hoping we're going to do some tests with it today and see if it can make the menu for next week. But it's just, you know, I like considering food sources as, you know, positive and negative, and, you know, you can take what every other chef wants, and that's a very negative, you know, food source. But if you can take something that no one else wants, it's a very positive food source, because as we know, everything in nature is in balance and in harmony. And this is just an extreme example of something which is out of balance. And so instead of spraying toxic chemicals to kill this invasive species, we can eat it. So I just think that's just a wonderful example of, yeah, that creativity that's propagated within the system, and using creativity for the ecological good. So a product that we started, this is going into materials. When I opened Silo in Brighton in 2014, I didn't quite have I didn't have a team, I didn't have any money, didn't have much experience. You know, we'd had a year together in you know, Silo Biodigester, the cafe together, and learning all those things. But a year's not a long time to garner that kind of experience that's needed to open a restaurant on my own. Anyway, so it's quite a difficult process, and there's a lot of learning. But one of the circumstances is that I had no money to, you know, buy a restaurant, basically, and had to get very creative with the materials, specifically because I couldn't afford plates and, you know, all these things that you need in a restaurant. So I had this process of going out to different artists and looking at what they were doing with waste materials, which was not a lot, to be honest, because, you know, even 7 years ago, whatever it was, the subject of zero waste was not what it is today. You know, the world has changed radically in the last 7 years. But anyway, so I would find these different artists making different products. And this was a product, it's not the prettiest plate you've ever seen. It's a plastic bag. Sorry, it's a plate made from plastic bags. And it was an artist called Louise Tilley. She has a company called Wheeze and Merle. And I basically said to her, I need to acquire some plates for my restaurant. Would you be interested in making plates out of plastic bags? She had previously been making sculptures for an art degree. And so, yeah, so she created this plate, which is not the prettiest plate, but as a lot of these quite cutting edge avant-garde ideas, it doesn't just become good. You have to work extremely hard and, you know, commit to, you know, you have this initial belief that there's something brilliant in this idea, and you have to persevere, because it doesn't, almost never does it fall on your lap. You know, it doesn't just happen. You need to work at it. Anyway, many years later, you can see the difference in quality. So this is the Mark 3 or 4, and every single plate is completely unique. So that was this, I'm calling it, well, it's something that's not unique to Silo in England. You know, obviously this is something that Joost, you've been doing for a long time, but looking at waste materials with a fresh perspective, looking at it as an opportunity, not a problem. You know, waste is a failure of the imagination. It exists because we haven't been creative enough to do something better with it, you know? So yeah, that's something that was quite...
I've treasured the yellow and grey one that I stole from you when I was in Silo.
You stole a plate? I didn't know that.
You actually gave it to me, but I pretended that I stole it.
Yeah. So, you know, this was many years ago, and we posted about this on Instagram, and it caught a lot of people's imaginations. This is an example of somebody whose imagination was caught. So you might have seen this online, put out of its sheath. So this is a chef's knife. So my friend Timothy, who made this knife, saw these plastic bag plates and thought, that is absolutely incredible. And he lived on a canal boat. And so on his canal boat, he was sat there thinking about, you know, turning plastic bags into plates, and then thought, you know, I'm going to make a knife out of the materials that are floating past me on this dirty river, dirty canal. And so he was fishing out the plastic waste from the canal and making the knife handles, which was amazing. But then he took it a step further, and I don't have a picture of this. Well, I do, but basically the blade itself is made out of a cable reel. 30% of this blade is made out of a cable reel that he fished out of the Thames River. So he forged a cable reel into a chef's knife. And most of our knives in this kitchen, and again, part of that network, so many people have acquired these knives, and his business is booming, and that's very, very exciting. I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to give one more example of there's hundreds of examples. The whole restaurant brief was to my friend Nina, the designer, was I want one of London's most attractive restaurants made out of waste. As in, you know, I want people to walk into this restaurant and be just like in awe of how beautiful it is, and then they won't know that it's made from waste. But it's made from waste and natural materials. And so, yeah, the last example that I wanted to show, and it's a bit similar to your floor. So it's made from glass. Now, glass I know it's different for maybe you guys in Australia because you have wine on tap. We can get wine on tap, but it's not ideal. You know, we're a cooler climate country, so we do not have, you know, all the great varietals that you guys do and the temperature that they need. So long story short, logistically, getting wine on tap does not work in London. Maybe a few, but not a lot. And we obviously love wine and want a big list or, you know, a generous list. So long story short, we have to accept the single-use glass wine bottles. And, you know, thinking in the sort of diagram of an ecosystem, that you have these circular feedback loops, you know, materials like food waste, for instance, you know, becomes compost, and that is a circular system. But glass, it's kind of this one-way linear. Sorry?
No, that's, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically glass was this linear material that wasn't kind of, you know, recycling glass. Yeah, it's a very sort of foggy, it's not the best solution. And it's something that we still do and have always done. But aspirationally, what we're trying to achieve is to create a feedback loop with glass. So what this is here, so we have plates made from wine bottles essentially, and we also have I'm going to show you so these lights you can see
so cool
are made from the wine bottles. They're all around the room. There's I think 50 or 60 of them made from the wine bottles, but that's something that aspirationally we're looking to crush all of the wine bottles and create this feedback loop within our own system. You know, we want to take responsibility for the materials that we have. So yeah, they're just some examples.
That's the ultimate example of upcycling.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and it is born out of that idea of closing the loops. You know, I like to think of zero waste as just a system with no loose ends.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Love your work. Yeah, we're dying to get on a plane, which is not very sustainable, to come and eat in your restaurant, but I don't think that's going to happen for a little while.
And more excited to cook with you again. It's been too long.
Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah, we need to do that. We need to do that.
We often say, Doug would love this or Doug would love that. It's like you're in this house, but you're not, you know, you're miles away. But anyway, I think this is like a house for Doug. You would love it.
Yeah, well, bring it to London.
Yeah. Done. We'll make it float down the river.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, mate. Thank you so much for this morning.
Good on you, mate. Good on you for tirelessly working so hard to do what you do. And, you know, you get it, we get it. It's not easy to do this. You know, it's much easier to conform with the system. And I'm sure we could be equally as successful in cookery and in the restaurant world. But to do stuff the way we are, it's not easy. And we know that, and we love and respect everything that you do.
Thank you. It's like the path of most resistance, you know. Humans like things, convenience, and we choose the path of least resistance. But to do the things that we're all doing is definitely the path of most resistance. But yeah, from that is hopefully a better looking future.
Absolutely. Good luck opening up.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure to see you all and speak to you all. And I wish I could give you a hug.
See you, Dougie.
All right, take care, mate.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.